come to order. Today we'll hear from 3 judicial nominees. Sarah Hill, nominated to the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Oklahoma. John Russell, also nominated to the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Oklahoma. And Judge Ramona Manglona, nominated to serve a second 10-year term on the U.S. District Court for the Northern Mariana Islands. Congratulations to the nominees and their families. Before I turn to Ranking Member Graham, I want to note that Ms. Hill and Mr. Russell each have received blue slips from both Republican home state senators, Senators Lankford, who is with us today, and Senator Mullen. I thank these senators for working with the White House in good faith to fill these vacancies, and thank all the other members on the Republican side who are doing the same. We are seeing similar progress in many states, and it is encouraging. Now I'll turn to Senator Graham for opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to compliment my colleagues from Oklahoma also in, trying to make the process work the best we can. The bottom line, we're about to leave, and the supplemental will not be passed. I think the government will be funded. But with wars rage in Israel and they rage in Ukraine, and we have a broken border. So I'm hoping that we can find a way forward when we get back to help our allies who are in distress, but also to help ourselves. And the key to all this, Mr. Chairman, is getting a border solution that would deter people from coming. If at the end of the day people feel like they can come here, get released, and never get deported, they'll keep coming. So I got a simple goal. Turn the system around to deter people so we can make some order out of chaos. And I think that's the key to this package. And Senator Lankford's been working on it, and I appreciate all he has done. So thank you.
Senator Graham, you and I have been working on this issue for at least 10 years, maybe longer. It's been 30 years since Congress has done anything substantive in this area. I think we all agree on both sides of the aisle that something needs to be done to bring order to our border situation. I hope that we can achieve that, and I think that there's a spirit of goodwill, which I've discussed with Senator Lankford yesterday, that can lead to that. But I also hope we understand as well that trying to do it all before we provide critical aid to Israel and to Ukraine and humanitarian aid may be an agenda that is overly ambitious. We'll see. Let's keep a positive attitude towards it and hope that we can get this done in a thoughtful fashion. First, let me introduce Senator Lankford from Oklahoma.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Ranking Member Graham, thank you so much for your time and for the opportunity to be able to introduce Sarah Hill and John Russell today, Judiciary Committee. These are some outstanding Oklahomans that I think you'll enjoy some spirited conversation with to go through, and we'll have no doubt that they'll be able to answer your questions fully and completely. I also appreciate the committee's efficient processing of these 2 nominees. At the moment, the Northern District of Oklahoma has 1 full-time judge. And then we have a second judge that is split between our 3 districts. To give you a context on this, they have about 500 cases in their backlog right now. In the Northern District of Oklahoma, based in the wake of the McGirt decision from several years ago and the overwhelming number of cases that are then coming that direction, the Northern District now no longer does civil cases at all. So the civil case backlog has backed up for years because there's not enough judges to actually fulfill the civil cases. So they're doing the criminal cases right now and trying to be able to do everything they can to catch up. So the need there for the additional judges is incredibly significant for them. Between 2020 and 2021, there was a 66% increase in criminal cases filed in the Northern District. Between 2021 and 2022, there was an additional 28% increase. Due to this massive increase in criminal cases and the need to ensure constitutional rights to a speedy trial, the civil cases have not been heard, as I mentioned before. So we need to be able to get additional judges, and we've gone through this process. Every person who becomes a federal judge swears an oath that states in part that they will administer justice without respect to persons and will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon them as a judge under the Constitution and laws of the United States. In reviewing potential nominees, it's important to me that I believe every person who will be a judge in my state will follow that oath, and I have no doubt these 2 nominees will consider that process. We have a very rigorous process of interview in my state as we work through this. And as the chairman mentioned, this has to be an agreement between both senators in Oklahoma and the White House. And as I would tell you, both senators from Oklahoma and the White House don't agree on a lot of things. But we do have to find common ground to be able to work on things together. And we have gone through a rigorous process over the course of the last year to be able to come with two incredibly well-qualified candidates. John Russell lives in Tulsa. He received his bachelor's degree from Oklahoma State University. He graduated from the University of Oklahoma College of Law in 1988 with distinction. John is a husband, a father to 3 daughters, and has 2 granddaughters. Here to support him today is his wife, Karen, his daughters, Emily and Allison, and his sister, Hope, which I hope he'll spend some time actually introducing them more completely. John has significant experience in both public and private. He began his career as a trial attorney in the tax division of the Department of Justice. He's prosecuted and defended civil tax cases on behalf of the United States and was named an outstanding attorney. He served as an assistant United States attorney for 7 years before moving to private practice, and he currently practices at Gable Gotwalls in Tulsa. One thing that stood out to me about John is also his dedication to serving the community, his volunteer, and his pro bono time. He's been named one of Oklahoma's super lawyers from 26 to 2022. He's been listed in Oklahoma's top 50 lawyers in 2013, 15, 21, and 22. I have no doubt, based on the respect that he has in our state, that he'll also be a highly competent and an excellent judge, and I recommend his nomination. Sarah Hill is the second nominee we have. She is from Tahlequah, Oklahoma, is the former Attorney General for the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. If confirmed, she'll be the first Native American woman to serve on the federal bench from Oklahoma. Sarah is joined today by her husband, Jerry, our sister, Jennifer, the Deputy Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation, Brian Warner, and the Cherokee Nation Attorney General, Chad Harshaw. Sarah is an exceptionally impressive nominee whose career in private practice and in public practice has focused on serving others. Before she became Attorney General for the Cherokee Nation, Sarah served as a Special Assistant United States Attorney for the Northern District of Oklahoma. Over the many years that my staff have worked with Sarah, we have found her to be one of the smartest people in the room in just about any room she walks in. She is highly respected in Tulsa for her legal knowledge and insight and her ability to be able to not only discuss the law, but to be able to walk through complexities in the law. When she speaks, even those who have a different legal opinion often listen and respect the argument that she makes. Her goal as an attorney has always been to bring level-headed perspective to the goal of building consistent consensus, traits that will make an excellent judge. I have no doubt that as a federal judge, Sarah will be guided by the United States Constitution, a document that she knows and respects. I am confident she will serve our state and our country extremely well, and I encourage her swift confirmation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Langford, thank you for joining us today. I know you have a busy schedule, and we'll excuse you when you're ready to leave.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Chairman.
next recognize Congressman Gregorio Sablan. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
You did. Thank you.
Please proceed.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman Durbin and Ranking Member Graham and members of the Judiciary Committee. Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to support the nomination of Ramona Villagomez Maglonia to a second 10-year term as Chief Judge for the United States District Court of the Northern Mariana Islands. As the sole elected representative of the Marianas in the United States Congress, I supported the nomination and confirmation of Judge Maglonia when this seat opened on the federal bench in 2009. Previously, the position had been held by men not from the Marianas. I believe with the growing political maturity of our islands, manifested that year by my own election as the first representative of the Marianas in Congress, the time has come to fill the federal district court seat with a qualified individual from our islands. President Obama and the United States Senate concurred. Now, President Biden has confirmed the validity of that decision by nominating Judge Maglonia to serve a second 10-year term. Judge Maglonia has proven to be an impartial and thoughtful jurist and has become a respected member of the federal judiciary. During her tenure, she has participated in hundreds of cases and always exhibited a deep respect for the United States Constitution and the rule of law. As a trailblazing first woman and first person of Chamorro descent to sit on the federal bench, In the Marianas, Judge Manglonia has demonstrated that neither attribute is an impediment to excellence nor to the faithful execution of her duty to maintain the integrity of the law. You have before you Judge Manglonia's record of decision-making. So let me speak to how she has used her position to contribute to the Marianas community. She has hosted multiple outreach programs for emerging leaders, the high school mock trial program, the local judiciary's law, and the Freshman Legislator Conference, the Girl Scout Justice Badge Program, and the Pacific Century Fellows. And just last week, Judge Manglonia has become a grandmother. So happy times for her. Her commitment, Judge Manglonia's commitment to her community is particularly commendable in view of the tumult of two super typhoons that just 3 years apart and the global pandemic. While maintaining court operations under these difficult circumstances, she also managed to coordinate the transition to a new federal courthouse, and she found the bandwidth to establish the district's first evidence-based drug court program. No wonder Judge Manglonia, along with her superb team, received the 2019 Director's Award for Extraordinary Actions from the Administrative Office of the United States Courts. No wonder USA Today recognized Judge Manglonia as a Woman of the Century from the United States Territories. No wonder the American Bar Association Standing Committee on the Federal Judiciary reached the unanimous finding that Chief Judge Manglonia is well qualified to serve on the United States District Court for the Northern Mariana Islands. And I may say, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member and Senators, it is with this, I speak for many others in our community when I say it is a sense of pride when we see a woman or a person, one of us, sitting there as the U.S. District Court judge for the Northern Marianas. So, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I respectfully ask you to agree. Ramona Villagomez Manglonia should continue to serve as the Chief Judge and send your recommendation to the full Senate for confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. We appreciate your being here today.
Thank you very
Now
much.
we're going to ask the nominees to approach the table and stand by their chairs for a moment while we administer the oath. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give before the committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Let the record reflect that all three nominees have answered in the affirmative. And Ms. Hill, you'll be the first to proceed with 5 minutes, and each will have that opportunity. Ms. Hill. You have to press the button on the console there.
Thank you for that tip.
Now you're in business.
Thank you, Chairman Durbin and Ranking Member Graham. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before the committee today. I'm also honored and humbled by the support of my state senators, Senator Langford, and my fellow Cherokee, Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. And I appreciate Senator Langford's introduction here today. I want to express my appreciation to President Biden for the honor of a nomination to serve as a district judge in the Northern District of Oklahoma. I would like to briefly introduce my parents who are watching me today from Tahlequah, Oklahoma. My father, Roy Hill, is a combat veteran who served with the 101st Airborne Division and retired after a long career in public service, working for the state of Oklahoma. My mother, a first-generation college graduate, also retired from a career in public service. I am so very proud to be their daughter. I must also express gratitude for my son, Landon, a college sophomore at Northeastern State University, who is today in Tahlequah, keeping an eye on his grandparents, who are hopefully also keeping an eye on him. I would like to introduce some dear friends and family who have come with me in person today, including my sister, Jennifer Daniels, the Deputy Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation, Brian Warner, the Attorney General of the Cherokee Nation, Chad Harsha. There are many other family, friends, and colleagues, both online and here today, who are supporting me, and I am grateful for all of them. Last, but certainly not least, I want to introduce my husband, Jerry Starkey, who stands with me today as he has stood with me for over 25 years. All of his family have made themselves my family, and I'm also incredibly grateful for my in-laws, Carol, Butch Daniels, Stephen, and Tina. In closing, I'd like to also take a moment to honor the continuing career of Judge Claire Egan, who assumed senior status in the Northern District of Oklahoma in 2022. She was the first woman to become a district judge in that district, and it is an honor to be nominated to succeed her. I want to thank her for illuminating a path into the federal judiciary for women in the Northern District. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Mr. Russell?
Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, members of the Judiciary Committee, thank you for scheduling this hearing. I want to thank President Biden for nominating me for one of the 2 vacancies in the Northern District of Oklahoma. It is an honor and a privilege to be nominated. I want to thank my home state senators, Senator Lankford and Senator Mullen, for establishing the committee to review applications and for their recommendation of my nomination to the President. I particularly thank Senator Lankford for the warm introduction and kind remarks this morning. I have too many people to thank, but I'm going to start with my family, and I have to say I won the lottery when it comes to family. I would not have had the success in my career without their support. I want to particularly thank my wife, Karen, who is with me today. In 37 years of marriage, she has been my biggest supporter, pushing me to do my best and always having my back. She gave up her career practicing law to raise our 3 daughters, and the great work she has done shows. You are the best. With me, too, is our oldest daughter, Dr. Emily Russell Levy of Denver, Colorado, and our second daughter, Allison Russell Barton of Tulsa. Our youngest daughter, Olivia Russell White, is at home in Tulsa with our 2 very perfect granddaughters, and they are watching remotely. I thank all 3 of our daughters and their husbands for their support. I want to thank my parents, Paul and Patty Russell, who are back in Oklahoma watching online. My parents taught me the values of hard work and an education through their example. I want to thank my 3 sisters and their husbands. My oldest sister, Hope Saunders, is here with me today. My sisters, Allison Fuller and Susan Shupp, are in Oklahoma watching online. I want to thank my mother-in-law, Stella Smith, watching from home, and my late father-in-law, Joe, watching from above. They have been unwavering supporters. I want to thank the great lawyers and the support staff at my law firm, Gable Gottwalls, for being great colleagues and their support through this process. I practice law with the best lawyers in Oklahoma, and I'm proud to be a part of that great firm. Lastly, I'd like to thank the many great lawyers from whom I learned how to practice law. I will be forever grateful for their guidance. Mr. Chairman, I look forward to answering the committee's questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Judge Magnolia?
Thank you, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Graham. Good morning. I would like to thank you and the other committee members for holding this hearing. I am grateful and thankful to President Biden for nominating me to serve a second term as the sole district judge for the District Court for the Northern Islands. I am humbled by his decision to recommend that I continue serving in this judicial capacity. I would like to also express my sincere appreciation, or as we say in the Chamorro language, Undangklu na Sidus Masi, to Congressman Gregorio Kalili Sablan for his kind introduction and supporting my renomination. There are family members joining us this morning who are excited to witness this confirmation process in person. My loving and supportive husband of almost 34 years, John, is here, together with my 2 siblings, Patricia V. Cepeda, who flew in from Houston, and Thomas P. Vilgomez, who made the long 10,000-mile journey all the way from Saipan. My nephew Thomas Peter Vilgomez from the Bay Area, and my grandnephew Wally Wesley, who lives right here in the DC area. My 2 children, Densho and Savannah, who were here with me in 2011 for my first nomination hearing, are unable to join us today. My daughter Savannah just gave birth a week ago to our first grandchild, Kaya J. Manglonia Jefferson. Savannah and her husband Jalen Jefferson are at their home in Sacramento, absorbing all the joys of parenthood. My son Densho is currently in Saipan, having just recently started a new job after obtaining his master's degree in public administration at American University just this prior May. He's saving his leave time to be able to travel to Sacramento and meet his niece, Kaya J, in December, when we all hope to be able to gather for the holidays. My nephew, Tomas A. Manglonia II, also wanted to be here in person, but is also back home covering all the regional news, including this story. It is 1 a.m., Thursday, Chamorro Standard Time right now, and I believe my 6 other siblings and their families are viewing this event live stream. My in-laws, Press and Lee Torres in Saipan, as well as Vincent and Benita Manglonia on Guam, and their children are also online. My brother David, who was here with me in 2011, is online from Hawaii. So we have a broad group. And I also understand some of the district court staff back on Saipan, as well as Guam, where I usually sit by designation, are also tuning in, including my dear friend, Chief Judge Francis Tainico Gatewood of the District Court of Guam. Thank you all for showing your support, and I am grateful. I thank the committee for allowing me to make these introductions, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Judge, thank you very much, and we know the duration of the trip makes it a special sacrifice for you to be here, and we certainly appreciate you, your family, and friends who are in attendance for making that sacrifice. I'm going to start the round of questioning, 5 minutes for each member. Ms. Hill, most members of Congress who have tribal representation in their states understand this whole issue of tribal sovereignty and the fact that you could have served as Attorney General for the Cherokee Nation. Could you summarize in a few sentences the difference or the challenge that you faced with that responsibility?
And serving as Attorney General of the Cherokee Nation, is post-McGirt especially has it's been very challenging. There's been a great increase in the number of criminal cases that are being heard. Indian tribes have jurisdiction over crimes committed by Indians across their Indian country. So throughout the reservation of the Cherokee Nation has jurisdiction, and the Office of the Attorney General is responsible for prosecuting those. So as the Attorney General, it has been the responsibility post-McGirt to scale up that office in a way that so we were able to handle all of the different cases that came to us. And I think that that's something that for people who have Indian country in their districts are probably more familiar with that process and may not be that familiar to other people. So
your responsibility as district court judge is separate and apart from the Cherokee Nation.
Certainly, a district court judge for the United States is an entirely different job than the job of an advocate. As Attorney General, of course, I was an advocate for the tribe's legal position and for its rights. Like all attorneys, I would advocate on behalf of my client with all the intellect and all of the strategic thought I could put into it on behalf of the nation. For a federal district judge, it's an entirely different job. The job is to look at all the cases that come before you impartially and fairly, and looking at everything on their own terms, and then applying the facts to the law. And it's a much different role entirely.
Thank you very much. Judge Manglonia, I want to pronounce your name correctly. Is it Manglonia?
Manglonia, yes, with the glotia.
Close now. You had a range of experience as a litigator and a jurist, and spent your legal career in the Northern Mariana Islands, including a previous appointment to the bench to which you've been renominated. I want to make a note of this fact, that after the island was hit with devastating typhoons in 2015 and 2018, you kept the courthouse open to ensure the crucial work of the judiciary would not be interrupted. Your judicial chambers were awarded the 2019 Director's Award for Extraordinary Action from the Administrative Office of the U.S. Court. How have your experiences equipped you to continue serving that unique need in the Northern Marianas?
Senator, the two super typhoons that hit Saipan, with the distance to receiving the help, was truly challenging. I was very grateful for the support from the administrative office, as well as my neighboring district in Guam. As I mentioned, the experience that I've gone through made me stronger in regards to being creative in how to deal with challenges. And I actually, from our initial experience in 2015, some of the other districts that then suffered other natural disasters in other parts of the country were able to avail of some of the lessons that we learned. And I believe all this experience is going to ensure that should there be another disaster or calamity, I will be so well prepared to maintain or keep the courthouse doors open to ensure that people's constitutional rights are still addressed.
Well, congratulations to you on that effort.
Thank you.
Mr. Russell, while reviewing your record, I noticed you've been representing U.S. purchasers in a putative class action against the manufacturer of a breast cancer drug called Herceptin. The plaintiffs in the suit contend the company falsely labeled vials of the drug so that the purchasers regularly received less of the active ingredient than they thought they were receiving. Can you tell us about your work in that case and what specific claims the class is raising?
Senator, the plaintiffs in that case, it's a putative class action. It's also a multi-district litigation case. And the claims are breach of warranty, fraud. There are several different claims relating to the lack of Herceptin that is showing up in the vials over a historical period of time. And so the claims are that the doctors' offices having to administer the Herceptin were required to open additional vials at cost and loss in each time that they administered Herceptin to a breast cancer patient.
I'm a little familiar with that issue because we've had the opposite be the case as well, that drugs are put in containers far greater than necessary for the ordinary dosage, and many of these very expensive drugs end up being surplus and thrown away. So labeling and handling and bottling is a critical element in making sure that the American consumer is treated fairly. Thank you very much. Senator Graham?
Thank you. Yes. Ms. Hill, I think the committee received a letter from the United UKB. How do you say the K?
Katua.
Okay. Questioning your impartiality and your ability to serve. What would you say?
I would say, certainly there's been a fair amount of litigation between the Cherokee Nation and the United Katua Band. And in that litigation, I represented my client to the best of my ability, which is my job and duty. Certainly, taking on the role of federal district judge is one that leaves behind the life of advocacy and embraces the job and the life of a jurist, one who takes the case before them and looks at them fairly impartially and applies to a lot of the facts. And I understand very much that that's the job of the district judge and not to serve as an advocate.
Okay. Are you familiar with called a corrupt bargain? The allegation of corrupt bargain between the Cherokee Federal and HHS concerning construction of a migrant detention center. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not. I'm familiar with the attempt to construct a migrant facility that.
But you had nothing to do with that?
No, that was done by Cherokee Nation businesses.
Okay, as an advocate for the Cherokee Nation, obviously you have to represent your client with vigor, and I think that's what all lawyers do. The two senators speak very well of you. When it comes to the Dakota pipeline, can you tell me your position regarding that?
So when the Dakota Access Pipeline was, the dispute in Indian Country arose with the Standing Rock Reservation, I was the Secretary of Natural Resources for the Cherokee Nation. The legislature, the elected leaders of the Cherokee Nation passed resolutions in support of the Standing Rock tribe. And so as part of a delegation of the Cherokee Nation, I participated in activities regarding that pipeline.
Okay, in terms of, do you have any particular bias against the fossil fuel industry?
I do not. I've worked, I think my record reflects that I've worked also with fossil fuel companies when they are putting in infrastructure, things like pipelines. One of the things they have to deal with is trying to make sure they don't affect the various sites where there might be tribal interests. And so working directly with those pipeline companies to make sure that they're sited properly and in compliance with the law is something that I've also done. So I've worked with companies that are also involved in fossil fuels. I do not believe I have any bias against them, and I think my record would reflect that.
Ma'am, how you say your last name again?
Manglonia.
How long does it take to get from Saipan to here?
24 hours one way, door to door.
You said that very certain. That's a
I've done it
long
many
haul.
times.
So you also have cases in Guam, is that right?
Yes, I sit by designation.
Is there anything the committee can do to make your job easier?
Confirm me?
Yeah, that's good. Good answer. I just assumed you had the job, so yeah, let me not jump over that part. Seemed to be well qualified. Everybody listening back in Saipan, she's doing good.
Yes.
So, how do you really, how long does it take you to get to Guam?
Well, Saipan and Guam are in the same archipelago, so I just fly down. It's about a 30-minute flight. Unfortunately, airline is the only way. Boat is by days. And so we're in the same time zone. It makes it easier. There were the days when we would have 3 to 5 flights in a day. Nowadays, it's very restricted, so it does constrain, but thank goodness for modern technology. In 2021, I presided over a 7-week trial where I was doing the trial in Guam and then handling my cases virtually in Saipan, so I can move things along.
Okay. Thank you much.
Senator Hirono?
Mr. Chairman, congratulations to each of you. I asked the following 2 foundational questions of nominees to for any of the committees on which I sit. So I'll start with Ms. Hill and go right down the line. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
Ms. Hill, you have a long career working for the Cherokee Nation, most recently as Attorney General, so I think that you will bring a unique perspective to the federal bench. How has your experience working for the Cherokee Nation prepared you for an appointment to the federal bench?
One of the good things about working for the Cherokee Nation, one of the things I have most enjoyed was the opportunity to work with lots of different types of people, working with state leaders on issues of common concern, working with the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Northern District to prosecute crime in Indian Country. So I've had an opportunity to work with lots of different types of individuals while working for the Cherokee Nation. It is the largest federally recognized Indian tribe and we have a very large reservation. So it's created lots of opportunities for me to learn to work with different people and to learn this state very well and to learn the law of lots of different topics, from laying pipelines and fossil fuels right up to criminal jurisdictional matters in Indian Country. So it's given me a breadth of experience that I think is going to be useful to a district judge in the Northern District of Oklahoma.
I agree with you, and if confirmed, you'll be the first Native American woman to serve as a federal judge in Oklahoma. And this committee has had a hearing in which we are, I think, sending to the floor. I hope, yes, we are. The first Native Hawaiian woman to sit on the federal bench. So I think it's very important that we have judges who have the kind of perspective that has to do with our Native people. So, I certainly look forward to supporting you. Again, for you, in McGirt v. Oklahoma, the Supreme Court held that the state of Oklahoma lacked jurisdiction to prosecute Native Americans for crimes committed on tribal land. Can you tell the committee briefly about the process of setting up the Cherokee Nation's criminal division following that Supreme Court decision?
When that case was decided, the Cherokee Nation's criminal docket was pretty uneventful. We typically had about 100 cases a year that we would hear, because most of the more serious crimes were tried by the Northern District or the Eastern District. Post-McGirt, that completely changed. The jurisdictional rules applied throughout the reservation. So we had, I think, around 3,700 matters, criminal and traffic matters, filed that first year post-McGirt. So I had to go from 1 criminal prosecutor to 9 full-time criminal prosecutors, and that sort of ramping up included support staff, investigators, all of those things that were required. So that process of building that up very quickly was something that I had to oversee as Attorney General, and it was quite the effort. But it was, that's what the law required. The nation's jurisdiction was larger than had previously been understood until the opinion in McGirt v. Oklahoma.
Thank you. Judge Maglona, since 2011, you have served as the sole active federal district court judge in the Northern Mariana Islands, and as such, you perform the work of a chief judge, a magistrate judge, and a bankruptcy judge. You wear many hats. Can you tell us about the unique experience of being not only the chief judge, but also the only federal judge in a district, and how has this experience informed your judicial approach?
Senator, it's been a wonderful challenge to be able to do all 3 areas of law. I'll be candid, the bankruptcy docket is not very vibrant right now. But there were instances where we'd have to deal with some novel issues. And as I mentioned, I also sit in by designation in Guam. So I assist in that district, and that's where I've also had additional experience even presiding over bankruptcy cases. Given the broad general jurisdiction experience that I had in the trial court for 8 years, I think it really prepared me to be able to do everything from beginning to end as magistrate judges for criminal or civil matters of criminal, from warrants all the way to sentencing as a district judge. So I had that full experience, and I enjoyed the full panoply, and I am so rewarded when I am also work with other district judges from either my neighboring district in Guam or elsewhere, including Hawaii.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And while I didn't have a question for you, Mr. Russell, I look forward to supporting you also.
Thank you, Senator. Senator
Thank you.
Grassley?
Yeah. Ms. Hill, I'm going to start with you. The 4 years, you were for 4 years until recently Attorney General, as we all know now. The Cherokee Nation has made contracts with the federal government for services related to unaccompanied alien children through tribally owned entities like Cherokee Federal. And this is an issue because 85,000 children have been lost track of by this administration. According to Cherokee Nation law, one of the Attorney General's duties is to prepare drafts of, quote, contracts and other instruments in which the Cherokee Nation government is interested. So for you, do you agree that the Cherokee Nation government would have had an interest according to that law in the multi-million-dollar contract entered into between the U.S. government and the Cherokee Federal, a tribally owned company?
I mean, the Cherokee Nation would have had the interest of a shareholder in Cherokee Federal, which is a business arm that's operated by the nation. So it would have an interest, has an interest in the company. Certainly, it's the owner of that company, but that company is operated separately from the government. So it has its own attorneys, it has its own infrastructure.
So you're saying that where your law requires you in your duties as Attorney General to prepare drafts, you're saying you would not been involved in preparing any of those drafts?
That's correct.
Okay. As Attorney General, well, maybe you've answered this last question. Let me ask and then come to the conclusion if you've answered it or not. What was your or your office's role with respect to these contracts entered into between Cherokee Federal and the federal government related to unaccompanied children's services? Did you approve them? Did you observe them? And I think you just told me you had nothing to do with these contracts.
I did not have anything to do with those contracts.
Okay. This next question is, you may have the same answer, but it goes in a little different direction because maybe as Attorney General you'd hear about any problems. Did you or your office receive any complaints related to Cherokee Federal's or any other entity handling unaccompanied alien children? And if so, what kind of complaints did you receive and how did you handle them?
I do not recall receiving any complaints about Cherokee Federal. The facility that, as I understand it, the facility that Cherokee Federal operated was in California. It was not a local facility, and so it wasn't on the reservation. It wasn't within the jurisdiction of the Cherokee Nation, and I don't recall ever receiving any complaints about it. I do recall there being a bit of controversy about it, but it was not as if I had a formal request for review or anything like that on my desk that I can recall, Senator.
Okay. If there's anything you can supply to us about these complaints you heard, just hear them, not being involved with them. I'd like that information. You don't need to give it to me now, but you could give it to me in writing. For all of you, a very general question, but do you believe that a judge should ever consider his or own values or policy preferences when determining what the law means or what the case's outcome should be? And if so, under what circumstances? I'll start with you, Ms. Hill.
I don't believe that the personal values or personal policy preferences of the judge should affect the outcome. The laws are written by Congress. The judges should look at what the law is. They should look at what the precedent is in the circuit that we serve in. But I don't think that overlaying your opinion about those things is appropriate.
If it's ditto for you, you can just say that, Mr. Russell.
The same. Personal values are not important. It's the rule of law.
And you, Ms. McGonia.
I agree with my co-panelists.
Okay. Maybe I'll quit. I'll put the rest in for writing.
Thank you, Senator Grassley. Senator Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to each of you. Ms. Hill, what is collateral estoppel?
Collateral estoppel. I think collateral estoppel, well, Senator, I will say that my 20 years of practice has primarily been dealing with issues relating to criminal law or relating to other areas of the law.
Yes,
and
ma'am. If you don't know, just tell me.
I certainly do know collateral estoppel. I'm finding that the bright lights of the moment are making it hard for me to recall it.
Okay, so you don't recall it. Okay. What is the amount in controversy requirement?
The amount in controversy requirement is $75,000. It typically governs, in many cases, almost any case in diversity jurisdiction in the federal courts.
Okay.
And a certain other.
What does the 13th Amendment to the Constitution do?
It outlaws slavery.
What does the 7th Amendment do?
It ensures that all civil jury trials, that all civil cases in the United States are done by jury trial. That you have a right to a jury trial in a civil case.
Okay. What is the difference between a stay order and an injunction?
A stay order would prohibit, an injunction would restrain the parties from taking action. A stay order, I'm not sure that I actually can give you that.
Tell me about, you'll see a lot of this in federal court. Tell me about the multi-district litigation statute.
So I'm not extremely familiar with the multi-district litigation. I do know that multi-district litigation is often consolidated into a particular court. So all of the cases involving a particular type of issue, if there is a multi-district litigation, those will all be referred to one court and one judge who will then oversee the MDL. But I will confess I'm not super familiar with all the ins and outs of that.
Okay, what kind of constitutional claims are subject to intermediate judicial scrutiny?
Cases involving certain types of classes, such as gender or illegitimacy, are subject to intermediate scrutiny. Some types of speech, like commercial speech, would be subject to intermediate scrutiny.
Okay. Tell me what a 12B6 motion is.
It's a motion to dismiss a claim, a motion to dismiss an issue for failure to state a claim.
Okay. And what's the standard for granting a summary judgment in federal court?
It says that there are no issues of material fact and that the issue can therefore be decided as a matter of law.
Okay. What's the standard for deciding whether a particular punishment is cruel and unusual under the 8th Amendment?
So the particular standard the court has said, and I cannot recall the case, but it says that you have to look at not only whether it is would be shocking to the individuals at the time that it was written, so it's not purely a historical review, as some of them are purely historical, but also you have to look at how it has changed, how those values have changed with time. It's one of those cases, circumstances where the court says it's appropriate to look at how values have changed with time.
Well, our right against cruel and unusual punishment is a fundamental right, is it not?
It is.
Okay. How do you square what you just told me about the Eighth Amendment with the case after case after case by the U.S. Supreme Court that says the definition of a fundamental right is one that's explicitly stated in the Constitution or deeply rooted in our history and tradition?
Yeah, I think that it is. I think it is deeply rooted in our history and tradition.
Yeah, but certain forms of punishment or not. If a form of punishment, it existed at the time of our founding, and it's deeply rooted in our history and tradition, you telling me that makes it automatically constitutional today? I thought you just told me.
No, I'm certainly not saying that. I'm not. What I say about it is really quite irrelevant, but the Supreme Court has said we look at it with a view to the changing values on these
why
issues.
The difference? I thought
they're
both fundamental rights. Why the difference?
You know, I think that's a question that the Supreme Court's going to have to answer, whether or not they have.
I think it has. I'm just asking if you know.
I think I've answered the question to the best of my ability, Senator.
Okay. Thank you all.
Senator Hawley, going to return? No. I think that all the senators have appeared who are going to question today. Ms. Hill, I congratulate you on surviving the John Kennedy 6-minute bar exam.
My contracts teacher is going to be appalled, and I'm going to have to live with that, Senator, but thank you, Chair. Thank you.
If you promise to spare Ms. Hill, I'll...
Did the White House give any of you any written materials to use to prepare?
They gave...
Or digital materials?
They gave us, questions, previous questions that had been asked by the panel.
And answers?
I think we had to go find the answers ourselves. I think we had to go watch the various committee
May I
meetings.
have a copy of that?
I don't have one, but I'm sure that it is literally just a list of questions.
I don't have a copy.
I don't have any copy.
Would you send me a copy? I'm easy to find. Would you send me a copy, Ms. Hill?
I will.
Okay. Would you each send me a copy?
Yes,
so I can
Senator.
compare and make sure they're all the same. Okay. Thank you.
Senator, can we have a copy of your list of questions to share with
Sure.
other members?
I'll even give you the answer.
It's like a bar. It's like a bar review course.
Yes.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all of you for being here. Ms. Hill, I'd like to start with you, if that's all right. As you know, in 2020, in the McGirt case, the Supreme Court held that in unique circumstances, major crimes committed in Indian country can be prosecuted only by tribal or federal courts. This ruling removed the state's ability to prosecute those crimes in those circumstances. Now, you strongly support the McGirt decision, and it's important to keep in mind that in Oklahoma versus Castro Huertas in 2022, the Supreme Court clarified that states retain the authority to prosecute non-Indians who commit crimes against others, even if those crimes take place in Indian country. Now, in one of your many critiques of that decision, you called Castro Huertas, quote, a very negative decision. And you said that, quote, Kavanaugh's opinion, which of course was the opinion of the court, Kavanaugh's opinion, it was terrible. To justify that critique, you came up with a hypothetical in which you stated that, quote, a non-Indian steals a car from an Indian, and that person can be prosecuted by the state. That person can also be prosecuted by the United States. They can be convicted twice for the same act and serve 2 sentences. That was part of your critique. My concern is that your critique here demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of how the double jeopardy clause of the Fifth Amendment works. I think most first-year law students can tell you that double jeopardy prevents separate prosecutions for the same offense when those prosecutions are brought by the same sovereign. A non-Indian who steals a car from a non-Indian, for example, in Utah, is properly subject to prosecution by both state and federal authorities, by the state government and by the federal government, because they are separate sovereigns in our system, just as in any other state in the United States. State governments are unique. They are unique independent sovereigns, separate and apart from the federal government. And the federal government is a completely different sovereign. This has been a line of authority. This has been a principle that's been clearly established ever since our nation's inception, certainly ever since we adopted the Double Jeopardy Clause in 1791 as part of our Constitution. So yes, McGirt presents a unique set of circumstances, an Indian committing a crime against an Indian in Indian country. But nothing in the Constitution prevents a state from prosecuting a non-Indian for their crimes, regardless of who the victim is. So in your view, do you disagree with the characterization of double jeopardy as I've just stated it? Do you disagree that the states are separate sovereigns from the federal government for purposes of the Double Jeopardy Clause?
I certainly don't disagree with that.
And if confirmed, would you follow the majority opinion in Oklahoma v. Castro Huertas?
I absolutely would. And given the practice that I've had, I've been following it for some time.
Your apparent desire to remove the state's authority to prosecute non-Indian offenders would, in my view, only weaken law enforcement's ability to remove violent offenders from the streets. And it's dangerous to place loyalty to any particular group over your loyalty to long-established principles of law or of the Constitution. So am I misreading your statement regarding Castro Huertas or the hypothetical?
I think that the full context maybe is not really reflected there, the full context of my comments. I can say, certainly on behalf of my client, I was critical of the decision in Castro Huerta because it was a decision that had other ramifications in Indian law outside.
Right, but I'm not talking about the other ramifications. I'm just talking about about double jeopardy here.
Right, I understand that. But those ramifications, that was some of the context of my criticism of it. I certainly believe and understand that I'm required to will be required to follow the law if I'm so fortunate as to be confirmed to serve in the Northern District. And I understand the distinctions that if you have three sovereigns, that all three sovereigns could bring those claims, and there would not be a double jeopardy issue.
Okay, while you were while serving as Attorney General of the Cherokee Nation, did you state that you had no intent to enforce the law post-Dobbs?
I never said that.
Did you at any point say, I expect, and I think everyone expects, massive constitutional challenges to that law, just for your awareness, referring to those laws?
I was not referring to Dobbs. That was the decision of the court. I was talking about the Oklahoma law that had been passed relating to abortion post the decision in Dobbs, and that law was being challenged, had already been challenged in the courts. It was significantly newsworthy in Oklahoma at the time that the Oklahoma law was being challenged.
Challenged post-Dobbs on grounds that you believed were legitimate challenges post-Dobbs?
I couldn't say that they were legitimate. I just knew that there were likely to be many challenges to it. It was very contentious.
Okay. See, my time's expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. Mr. Russell and Ms. Manglona, did I get that right? I intend to support you all's confirmation. Even if I was leaning against you, I would have done it after your answer to Senator Graham's question about how your job could be made easier. I've been watching the proceedings in my office. Ms. Hill, I've got some questions for you. You probably know I'm from North Carolina, and I have a history with the Eastern Band of the Cherokee, and up until a couple of years ago, it was pretty positive. I was the speaker that negotiated the new compact for the Eastern Band that gave rise to live gambling and the additional casino that they had there. But we've had a parting of the ways that hopefully sooner or later we get back on track. This week, the Eastern Band are in the middle of the National Congress of American Indians doing their best to disenfranchise state-recognized tribes as either voting members or members of the organization, which, of course, is just another example of where they want to shut the door behind their recognition. But I've got some questions I just need to clear up very quickly. On March 12th, the U.S. Department of Interior agreed to put 17 acres in Cleveland County in North Carolina in a trust for the Catawba Nation. On May 1st, 2020, as Attorney General, your team filed a motion to intervene in the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Indians, United States versus the Department of Interior. The motion backed the Eastern Band of the Cherokee and claimed that the DOI willfully violated the National Historic Preservation Rights, National Environment Policy Act, and Administrative Procedure Act. Do you believe the DOI got the decision right or wrong?
That case was some time ago. I remember that there was an issue regarding the NHPA and that particular
Okay,
piece of property.
I'll let you actually, if you'll submit that answer in writing. Just
that would be helpful. I'm
straightforward, whether or not you think the DOI got it right or wrong. Can I get your commitment that you will recuse yourself from cases involving tribal issues which you have had a degree of involvement that would create at least the appearance of lacking impartiality?
I will certainly recuse myself, in any circumstance where the rules would indicate I should, including.
So it's a maybe. If it's an appearance thing, it's a maybe. Do you agree that the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, that there should be 3 congressional delegates? I know that you know that UKB and Eastern Band of Cherokee may have differing opinions here. I'm kind of curious about your opinion.
Right. I certainly represented on behalf of the Cherokee Nation that it was the treaty holder and that it had a right to have the delegate on behalf of the Cherokee Nation. That was the position that I took on behalf of the Cherokee Nation.
If a case regarding the potential Cherokee delegate to Congress comes before you, would you recuse yourself?
I think I would recuse myself on that case.
Do you believe that you should consider other cases regarding the Lumbee Tribe of North Carolina impartially, given your background? Should a case go through the courts and be in your jurisdiction related to Lumbee recognition?
I can only follow the rules of judicial conduct, which on any matter that comes before me. And if there was an issue raised that demanded my recusal, I would certainly recuse according to the rules.
Okay. I'm trying to do lightning round here. I'm sorry. I really hate interrupting people, even when I appear to be hostile. This has nothing to do with you, Ms. Hill. It has to do with a profound issue and disagreement that I have with the Eastern Band of the Cherokee. So please accept my apologies. There have been reports that the Cherokee Nation has made millions of dollars from immigration contracts to process individuals who enter the United States illegally, specifically unaccompanied children. As the former Attorney General for the Cherokee Nation, were you involved in any of the immigration contract negotiations?
I was not.
Okay. And in your private practice, I believe that they have done some representation on this matter?
I've never been involved in that in any real way.
We've got a couple of, it's unfair to hit you in the lightning round and ask you to recall all of that. We will be submitting a question for the record that's very concise with respect to the matter and a couple of other things. Mr. Chair, I'm going to yield back time so Senator Padilla can speak, but I did have one document. That was the filing. If I may, I'd like to seek unanimous consent to have the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Indians versus the Department of the Interior case into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yield back.
Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome to all 3 nominees. Congratulations on being here today and for your willingness to serve. My first question is a question I ask to every nominee that comes before this committee for the federal bench, and that's a 2-part question. Number 1, do you agree with the following? I believe one of our country's greatest strengths is our diversity, not just ethnic, racial diversity, but the diversity of our economy, the diversity of cultures, the diversity of life experiences and professional experiences that I believe our federal judiciary should represent. Hasn't always. Working with President Biden, this committee, we have considered and confirmed a historically diverse group of federal judges at all levels over the last 2+ years. Do you agree that diversity is good for the courtroom and for the judicial system? And I'm not just talking about diversity on the bench, by the way. Here's the part B of the question. If you agree with that statement, I'd love to hear it. If you disagree, I'd love to hear why. But if you do agree, then what would you do to work towards more diverse staff in the courtroom, not just on the bench, particularly when it comes to law clerks? I think you may each be able to speak to your experience as law clerks and what that did to support your career trajectory, whether it's been in public or in private practice. So two-part question, starting with Ms. Hill.
I certainly, do agree with the value statement that you gave, Senator. And as it relates to the hiring of court personnel, including staff, I was not a clerk, and I will say that growing up in the rural community that I grew up in, and I just was didn't have any exposure to this world that clerks, whether I even understood exactly what clerks did or what that pathway looked like. And so I think that a lot of the work that perhaps needs to be done is just giving people that come from rural communities where you don't have lawyers in your life. I didn't grow up in a world where there were lots of lawyers. And so that world was very opaque to me. Even though I wanted to be a lawyer, I wasn't exactly sure how to understand that world. And so I think one of the ways to do that is to reach out into communities where, where there are people from rural areas, especially in the communities in the Northern District, and let people understand those opportunities, make people aware of what clerking is and what it can do for you, and so that people understand the value of it and understand what the pathway is would be one of the things I think would be valuable, and I would, want to be able to contribute in some way to helping that happen.
Beautifully said. Thank you. Mr. Russell.
Senator, I agree with your value statement and believe that diversity is important on the bench as well as in the staff chambers of any judge. For my part, like Ms. Hill, I did not clerk, but in the many firms that I have worked at, we have seen the value of clerkships as we have had and hired clerks that have come in. And having the diversity is important because we are seeing talent coming from all different places. And so if I'm fortunate to be confirmed, I would cast as wide of a net as possible to try to get clerks from as many places as possible, from diverse backgrounds as well as racial diversity. In all types of diversity, I think, are important so that it's never an echo chamber. Thank you.
Senator, in my 20 years as a judge, I have seen the value of diversity. Speaking from the bench, I think it's nice for the community to see that people who are aware of all walks of life that are represented are also on the bench. In the Superior Court that I was sitting at, there were only 5 trial court judges. Now with 1 district judge in my district, I am the only one representing, and I think it's something that is valuable for the perception of the community. In regards to hiring law clerks, for example, I do agree as well for diversity. I've hired from throughout the country. Unfortunately, we don't have a law school in my region, and so there aren't much in our district. But the ability to listen and hear different perspectives from, I have a law clerk from the East Coast and a law clerk from the West Coast, and having discussions about different issues or matters, it's really enlightening. And I think that's one reason why, as a judge, when we keep an open mind and then listen to the different perspectives, it would really enable us to make an informed decision.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chair, if I may, just one follow-up question for Ms. Hill. As Senator Langford and Senator Hirono noted, and we all recognize, if confirmed to be the first Native American woman to serve as a federal judge in Oklahoma, where I think the Native population represents more than 10% of the state population. Your resume is clearly impressive. You are clearly more than qualified for this role, but this is a milestone that many would consider long overdue. I know a thing or two about being the first, but I'd like to hear from you. What would it mean to you and the people of Oklahoma if you were to be confirmed to be the first Native American woman on the district court for Oklahoma?
Oklahoma is such an amazing place. It's my home state, and I can't say enough great things about it. One of the great things about it, though, is its Native population. It's just brings something to the state that makes it utterly unique, and it's very valuable. And I think that having such a large Native population in the state, I think everybody will feel. I certainly feel like, having a federal bench that reflects the community that serves it is a sign that your government is thriving, that the community is thriving, that things are working well. And so I think that from that point of view, it will be a good thing to see, and it's meaningful to me in that way. It's an opportunity to reflect the community that is served by the Northern District, and it's a very humbling thought to be the first.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. At this point, I'm going to adjourn today's hearing after making this logistical note. Questions for the record will be due to the nominees by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, November 22nd, which is the day before Thanksgiving. So you'll be given time to celebrate Thanksgiving after 5 p.m. So I suggest everyone plan accordingly. The record will likewise remain open until that time to submit letters and similar materials. With that, and the gratitude of the committee to the nominees, their families, and friends, this committee stands adjourned.